The night was silent until a child's sobs shattered it. Richard Cole, a real estate magnate worth millions, stood frozen beside his daughter's grave. 3 months had passed since the accident that took Alexandra from him, but the wound remained raw, festering with guilt and regret. In the cold mist of the evening, Richard placed fresh roses on the marble headstone, his fingers trembling as they traced the engraved letters of her name. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," he whispered, his voice breaking in the emptiness of the cemetery. "I should have been there more. Should have listened when you needed me to." The words hung in the air, unanswered as they always would be. Richard closed his eyes, allowing himself to feel the full weight of his failure. Alexandra, Alex to those who truly knew her, had been gone for exactly 94 days, and each one had been a waking nightmare. That's when he heard it, a child's crying. Richard's head snapped up. The cemetery was supposed to be empty at this hour. Sunset painted the grounds in hues of orange and purple, while mist rolled between the gravestones like something from a forgotten dream. The crying came again, closer this time, desperate and heartbroken. He stood slowly, his heart pounding, and followed the sound through the gathering fog. Each step felt heavier than the last, drawing him towards something he couldn't explain. And then he saw him. A small boy, no more than 6 years old, crouched beside Alexandra's grave. His tiny body shook with sobs, his face buried in his hands. The child wore a tattered jacket far too big for his small frame, and his shoes were falling apart, the sole of one nearly detached. His brown hair was unkempt, his thin wrists exposed where his sleeves rode up. "Hey," Richard called softly, "are you okay?" The boy's head jerked up, eyes wide with terror. He scrambled backward, clutching something to his chest, a piece of paper or photograph. "It's all right," Richard said, kneeling to appear less threatening. "I won't hurt you. I'm Alexandra's father." The boy's lip trembled. "She was my friend," he whispered. "She was everything to me." Richard felt as though he'd been punched in the gut. His daughter, his Alex, friends with this homeless child? How was that possible? "What's your name?" Richard asked, keeping his voice gentle. "Logan." The name meant nothing to Richard. Nothing at all. "Logan, where are your parents?" The boy's face crumpled. "I don't have any. They left me." Thunder rumbled overhead. The air grew heavy with impending rain. "What are you holding?" Richard asked, noticing the boy still clutching something to his chest. Logan hesitated, then slowly extended his hand, revealing a crumpled photograph. Richard took it with trembling fingers. His blood turned to ice. The photo showed two people, Alexandra, smiling bright as the sun, and Logan looking up at her as if she were his entire world. They sat on a park bench, ice cream cones in hand. The date stamped in the corner was from over a year ago. This was real. Alexandra had known this boy, had cared for him, had brought him to a public place and taken photos. And Richard had never even heard his name. "Where did you get this?" Richard whispered. "Alex gave it to me," Logan said quietly. "She said it was proof that I mattered, that someone saw me." Rain began to fall now, fat droplets spattering on the granite headstones. "She was coming to meet me," Logan continued, his voice rising with emotion. "The day she died, she was bringing me food, and that's when the accident happened." His face contorted with anguish. "It's my fault." The boy collapsed into sobs so violent his whole body shook. Richard's mind reeled with the implications. Alexandra had been going to meet this boy when she died in that car crash. That changed everything about what he thought he knew. Without thinking, Richard pulled Logan into his arms. The boy stiffened at first, then clung to him like he was drowning. "It wasn't your fault," Richard said fiercely. "It wasn't your fault at all." Logan looked up at him with desperate, red-rimmed eyes. "I have to go now. The shelter closes at 9. If I don't get there, I have to sleep outside." He glanced at the darkening sky. "And tonight's supposed to be really cold." Richard stared at this small, broken child. His daughter had tried to save him, and she had died in the attempt. The thought of sending him back to a shelter, or worse, to the streets, was unconscionable. "You're coming home with me," Richard said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. Logan's eyes widened. "What?" "You're coming to my house tonight. You'll have a warm bed and hot food. We're going to figure this out." "But why would you?" Logan asked, confusion written across his small face. "Because Alexandra loved you," Richard said simply, "and that's enough for me." Tears streamed down Logan's face. Slowly, his small hand slipped into Richard's. Together, they walked through the rain-soaked cemetery toward Richard's Mercedes, parked at the edge of the grounds. As Logan climbed carefully into the passenger seat, Richard's phone buzzed with a text. "Unknown number." Stop asking questions about the boy, or you'll lose more than you already have. Richard's blood ran cold. Someone was watching. Someone knew he had Logan. He deleted the message and glanced around the deserted cemetery. Nothing but shadows and rain. He started the car and drove toward the gates, but in the rearview mirror, his breath caught. A black SUV was following them, its headlights cutting through the rain like predatory eyes. Richard glanced at Logan, who stared out at Alexandra's grave, his small hand pressed against the glass in a silent goodbye. What had his daughter gotten involved in? Why was someone threatening him? And most terrifying of all, was Logan in danger? The black SUV stayed close behind them for 10 minutes before disappearing down a side street. Richard's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, his mind racing with questions he couldn't answer. Beside him, Logan sat silent and small, staring at his reflection in the rain-streaked window. "Logan," Richard said carefully, "I need you to tell me everything about Alexandra, everything she told you, everything you remember." The boy didn't look at him. "She found me 6 months before she died. I was sleeping behind the grocery store on 5th Street. She gave me a sandwich and asked if I was okay." Richard's chest tightened. 6 months. His daughter had been helping this child for 6 months, and he had never known. "After that, she came every week," Logan continued, his voice barely audible over the rain drumming on the roof. "Sometimes twice. She brought me food, clothes, books. She said I deserved better." "Better how?" Richard pressed gently. Logan's voice cracked. "She said she was going to talk to her dad. She said she wanted him to meet me, but she was scared." "Scared of what?" "That you wouldn't want me. That you'd think I was just another problem." The words hit Richard like a sledgehammer. His daughter had been afraid to tell him about this homeless child who needed help, afraid he wouldn't care. Was she right? Would he have cared if Alexandra hadn't died? The thought made him sick. They pulled up to Richard's estate 20 minutes later. The iron gates swung open automatically, revealing a massive house that looked like something from an architectural magazine. Perfectly trimmed hedges, a fountain in the circular driveway, lights glowing from every window. "You live here?" Logan asked, awe in his voice. "Yes," Richard said quietly, parking near the front steps. "It's like a castle," Logan whispered. Richard looked at the house through Logan's eyes. Suddenly, it felt obscenely large, unnecessarily grand, a monument to wealth and ego. While children like Logan slept under bridges, he lived in a mansion with rooms he never entered. They hurried through the rain to the front door. Inside, warmth wrapped around them like a blanket. The marble floors gleamed beneath crystal chandeliers. Logan stood frozen in the entrance, dripping water onto the expensive rug. He looked terrified to move, as if he might break something just by breathing. "It's okay," Richard said gently. "Come on, let's get you dry." He led Logan upstairs to one of the guest rooms. The room was larger than most apartments, with a king-size bed, flat-screen TV, and a bathroom that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel. "There are towels in the bathroom," Richard said. "Take a hot shower. I'll find you some clean clothes." Logan nodded but didn't move. He just stood there shivering, staring at the bed as if it might disappear if he blinked. "Logan?" Richard asked. "What's wrong?" The boy's voice was barely a whisper. "I've never slept in a real bed before." Richard's heart shattered into a million pieces. He had to turn away to hide the emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. "Well," he said, forcing his voice to stay steady, "tonight you will. Take your time. I'll be downstairs." He left Logan alone and went to his home office, closing the door behind him. Then he collapsed into his chair and put his face in his hands. Alexandra had known about Logan for 6 months. 6 months of secret meetings, of carrying this burden alone, of trying to save a child while her father lived in ignorant luxury. What kind of man had he been? So buried in work, so focused on deals and profits that his own daughter couldn't tell him about something that mattered this much. His phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. "We're watching. Send the boy away or face the consequences." Richard's jaw clenched. He dialed Jake Lawson immediately. "Jake, I need you at the house now, and bring 2 of your best men." "What's going on, Mr. Cole?" Jake's voice was instantly alert. The former police officer had been Richard's head of security for 5 years, and he knew when things were serious. "I'll explain when you get here," Richard said. "And Jake, come armed." He hung up and opened his laptop, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He pulled up every contact he had, private investigators, lawyers, former police officers who owed him favors. Within minutes, he had 3 investigators on the line. "I need everything you can find on a boy named Logan, no last name, approximately 6 years old, Parents abandoned him. He's been living on the streets. That's not much to go on, Mr. Cole, one investigator said. Then dig deeper. Check hospital records, birth certificates, missing children reports. I want answers by morning. Sir, that's going to cost— I don't care what it costs, Richard snapped. Just find out who this boy is and why someone is threatening me because of him. He hung up and pulled up another file. Alexandra's phone records from the months before she died. He'd looked at them after the accident, but only briefly, searching for answers he never found. Now he studied them with new eyes. There, a number she'd called repeatedly. Always short calls, never more than a few minutes. The last call had been made an hour before the accident. Richard dialed the number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a woman's voice, suspicious and cold. Who is this? My name is Richard Cole. My daughter Alexandra used to call this number. I need to know who you are. Silence followed. Then, I don't know any Alexandra. Please, Richard said desperately. She died 3 months ago. I just found a boy at her grave. A boy named Logan. And someone is threatening me because of him. If you know anything— Logan? The woman's voice changed, became urgent. You found Logan? Yes, he's here with me now. Who are you? Listen to me very carefully, the woman said. Get that boy out of your house. Now, tonight. They will come for him. Richard's blood turned to ice. Who's coming for him? The people who killed your daughter. The phone went dead. Richard stared at the screen, his heart hammering against his ribs. The people who killed Alexandra? The police had said it was an accident, a drunk driver who ran a red light. But what if they were wrong? Footsteps sounded in the hallway. Richard stood quickly, opening his office door. Logan stood there in borrowed clothes, one of Richard's old t-shirts that hung on him like a dress, and sweatpants rolled up at the ankles. His hair was wet from the shower, his face scrubbed clean. He looked so small, so vulnerable. I heard you talking, Logan said quietly. Someone called about me? Richard forced a smile. Just making some calls to help figure things out. Are you hungry? Logan nodded hesitantly. They went downstairs to the kitchen. Richard heated up leftover pasta and watched as Logan ate like he was starving, which Richard realized with shame he probably was. Logan, Richard said carefully, did Alexandra ever tell you she was in danger? The boy's fork froze halfway to his mouth. What do you mean? Did anyone ever threaten her, follow her, make her scared? Logan's face went pale. He set down his fork, his hands trembling. There was a man, he whispered. A few weeks before she died, he found us together. Richard leaned forward. What happened? Alex was giving me food behind the library. The man came up and started talking to her. He was angry. Logan touched his left cheek. He had a scar right here. He told Alex she was making a mistake, that she should stop helping me. What did Alexandra say? She told him to leave us alone. But after that, she was different. She made me promise to hide if I ever saw him again. Richard's stomach twisted. Did you see him again? Logan's eyes filled with tears. The day she died. He was across the street when she picked me up. I told her we should leave, but she said it was okay. She said she had a plan to keep me safe. The boy's voice broke. We were driving to her friend's house. Someone Alex said could help me. She got out to get something from the trunk, but then that other car, he couldn't finish. Glass shattered somewhere in the house. Richard jumped to his feet. Logan yelped, dropping his fork with a clatter. Stay here, Richard commanded. Grabbing a knife from the kitchen drawer. He moved toward the sound, his heart racing. It had come from the living room. The large bay window was broken, rain and wind pouring through. On the floor, surrounded by broken glass, was a brick. Tied to it was a note. Richard picked it up with shaking hands. The note read, "Give us the boy or everyone you love dies." Behind him, Logan screamed. Richard spun around. The back door was open, swinging in the wind. A figure in black stood there, ski mask covering his face. Gun pointed directly at them. Step away from the boy, the man said, his voice cold and mechanical. Richard moved in front of Logan instinctively, shielding him with his body. Who are you? What do you want? The boy doesn't belong to you. He belongs to us. Us? Richard's mind raced. Who was us? The man raised the gun, aiming it at Richard's chest. Last chance. Move. Logan clutched Richard's shirt, sobbing. Don't let him take me, please. Time seemed to slow down. Richard saw the man's finger tighten on the trigger, saw the cold calculation in his eyes, saw death coming for them both. And then the front door crashed open. Police, drop your weapon. The masked man spun around. Gunfire exploded through the kitchen. Richard threw himself over Logan, shielding the boy with his body. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. Footsteps pounded across the floor. Then silence. Richard looked up cautiously. The masked man was gone. The back door swung open wider, rain pouring in. Police officers swarmed through the house, guns drawn. A female officer knelt beside them. "Mr. Cole, are you hurt?" "No, we're okay." Richard pulled Logan up, checking him for injuries. The boy was trembling violently, but appeared unharmed. "How did you know to come?" Richard asked. "Anonymous tip," the officer explained. "Someone called and said there was an intruder at your address." The woman on the phone, she must have called the police after warning Richard. Jake burst through the front door with a security team, weapons ready. "Sir, are you all right?" "We're fine," Richard assured him, "but I need you to lock down this entire property. No one gets in or out without my approval." "Yes, sir." Jake turned to his team, issuing rapid orders. A tall woman with short, dark hair approached. She showed Richard her badge. "Special Agent Elena Rivera, FBI. I need to speak with you privately, Mr. Cole." Richard looked down at Logan, who was still clinging to him. "It's okay," he told the boy. "This is a friend. She's here to help." Rivera led them to Richard's study, closing the door behind them. Her face was serious, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Mr. Cole, I've been investigating a case that I believe directly involves this child. May I ask how he came into your care?" Richard explained finding Logan at Alexandra's grave, the photograph, the threats, and the attack. Rivera listened intently, occasionally making notes. When Richard finished, she sighed heavily. "I was afraid of this. Mr. Cole, your daughter Alexandra contacted me 8 months ago. She said she'd found evidence of a trafficking ring operating in the city. I told her to send me everything she had and stay away from it, but she didn't listen." Richard felt sick. "Why didn't you protect her?" Rivera's face tightened with pain. "I tried. I had an agent watching her, but these people are everywhere. They got to her before we could stop them." "The car accident wasn't an accident," Richard said, the horrible truth dawning on him. "The drunk driver was paid to run that red light," Rivera confirmed. "He killed Alexandra and then skipped town. We found his body 3 weeks later in a river. They killed him to cover their tracks." "Yes, and now they want Logan back because the boy is the only remaining witness to their crimes." "What do you mean?" Richard asked, glancing at Logan, who sat quietly beside him, eyes wide with fear. Rivera pulled up files on her tablet. Logan saw things. Before his mother tried to escape, she kept him in the house where the operation was run. Logan was only 5, but he saw faces, heard names. His testimony could bring down the entire network. "He's just a child," Richard said desperately. "He can't remember all that." "You'd be surprised what traumatized children remember," Rivera said grimly. "Donovan knows this. That's why he's been hunting Logan for over a year." "Donovan?" "Victor Donovan, the man who runs the trafficking ring, and Logan's biological father." Richard felt as though the floor had disappeared beneath him. He looked at Logan with new understanding. "Is that true? Is Victor Donovan your father?" Logan nodded, tears spilling down his cheeks. "He's a bad man. He hurts people, especially kids." Richard turned back to Rivera. "So what do we do now?" "You have 2 options. 1, hand Logan over to FBI protection. We'll put him in witness protection, relocate him, give him a new identity. He'll be safe." She paused. "But you'll never see him again." The thought felt like a knife in Richard's chest. "What's option 2? "We use Logan as bait." Rivera held up a hand when Richard started to protest. "Hear me out. Donovan gave you 48 hours. That means he's planning something big. If we let him think you're going to hand Logan over, we can set a trap. Catch him and his entire operation in one move." "You want to put a 6-year-old child in danger?" Richard's voice rose in anger. "He's already in danger," Rivera countered. "This way, at least we can control the situation, and we can finally stop Donovan before he hurts anyone else." Richard stood up, pacing. Everything in him screamed to protect Logan, to hide him somewhere safe. But Rivera was right. Donovan wouldn't stop. He'd hunt them forever. "If I agree to this," Richard said slowly, "I have conditions." "Name them." "I stay with Logan the entire time. If anything goes wrong, I get him out. And after this is over, I want to make sure he's taken care of." Rivera studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Okay, but you have to follow my instructions exactly. One mistake, and we all die." They spent the next hour planning. Rivera explained her strategy. They'd meet Donovan at the abandoned warehouse as requested, but FBI agents would be positioned throughout the building. The moment Donovan revealed his operation, they'd move in. "What about corrupt cops?" Richard asked. You said some of them work for Donovan. I'm only using agents I trust completely, Rivera assured him. Donovan won't see us coming. Richard wanted to believe her, but fear gnawed at his gut. When he returned to the living room, Logan was sitting with one of Jake's security guards playing a simple card game. The boy looked up hopefully when Richard entered. Did you find out anything? Richard sat beside him, looking into those innocent eyes that had seen far too much horror. Logan, I need to ask you something very important. Do you remember things from before Alexandra found you? From when you lived with your father? Logan's face went white. I try not to remember. I know it's hard, Richard said gently, but anything you remember could help us stop your father, could help us save other kids. Logan was quiet for a long time. Then in a small voice he said, there was a house, a big house with a red door. Inside, there were rooms with locks on the outside. Richard's stomach turned. How many rooms? 6, maybe 7. Kids stayed in them. They cried a lot. Do you remember where this house was? Richard asked, keeping his voice steady despite the horror rising within him. Logan squeezed his eyes shut, thinking hard. There was a church across the street with a tall bell tower. In a park nearby. I remember swings. Richard immediately pulled out his phone and started searching. A house near a church with a bell tower and a park. In 15 minutes, he found 3 possibilities within the city. He showed Logan photos of each location. Logan's fingers shook as he pointed at the third one. That's it. That's the house. Richard's heart raced. He immediately texted Rivera the address. Her response came within seconds. That's one of Donovan's known properties. It's been abandoned for months. We raided it last year but found nothing. Richard texted back. Logan says there were locked rooms. Did you check for hidden spaces? A long pause, then, we'll send a team tonight. Richard looked at Logan. The boy was crying silently, tears rolling down his cheeks. I'm sorry, Logan whispered. I should have told Alex about that house. Maybe if I had, she'd still be alive. No, Richard said firmly, pulling him close. This is not your fault. None of it is your fault. But even as he said it, Richard felt his own guilt crushing him. If he'd paid more attention to Alexandra, if he'd asked her what was wrong, if he'd been a better father, maybe she'd still be alive too. That night, as Logan slept upstairs, Richard sat in his study reviewing everything he knew. There was so much danger, so many unanswered questions. How had Alexandra gotten involved? What had she discovered that got her killed? Then he found it. A video file on her laptop dated 2 weeks before her death. He clicked play. Alexandra's face filled the screen. She looked tired, scared, but determined. Dad, she said, her voice shaking, if you're watching this, it means something happened to me. I need you to know the truth. Richard's vision blurred with tears. I found Logan 6 months ago, Alexandra continued. He was starving and alone. When I started helping him, I realized his father was Victor Donovan, the same man I'd been reading about in the news, the trafficking case. She leaned closer to the camera, her eyes intense. Dad, Donovan is worse than anyone knows. He has people everywhere, police, judges, politicians. I have proof. I've been gathering evidence for months. She pulled out a stack of papers. I was going to bring it to the FBI, but I'm scared they might be compromised too. Alexandra's eyes filled with tears. Logan is just a little boy. He deserves a life, a real life. I wanted to tell you about him, but I was afraid you'd think I was crazy for getting involved. I know how you are about staying out of trouble, about being practical. Richard's heart broke. She thought he wouldn't care, that he'd choose practicality over helping a child in need. If something happens to me, Alexandra said, her voice cracking, please protect Logan. He's the sweetest kid, Dad. He reminds me of when I was little and you used to read me stories. She wiped her eyes. He deserves that. He deserves someone to tuck him in at night and tell him he's safe. She took a deep breath, composing herself. I love you, Dad. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about this sooner. I wanted to handle it myself, to make you proud. The video ended. Richard sat in the darkness, tears streaming down his face. Alexandra had wanted to make him proud. She died thinking he might not understand, might not care about a homeless child being trafficked by his own father. His phone buzzed. A text from Rivera. We searched the house, found a hidden basement. 12 children locked inside. They are safe now. Logan's testimony led us to them. Another text followed. Donovan knows we found them. He's going to move up his timeline. Expect him to contact you soon. Richard's blood ran cold. Donovan would be desperate now. Dangerous. Sure enough, his phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? You called the FBI. Donovan's voice was ice. That was a mistake. You murdered my daughter, Richard said, struggling to control his rage. Your daughter should have minded her own business, Donovan replied coldly, just like you should mind yours. I'm not giving you Logan, Donovan laughed. Then I'll take him. And you, and everyone in that house. I'm coming for my son, and this time no one will stop me. The line went dead. Richard sat frozen, his mind racing. Donovan was coming, tonight. Not in 48 hours as Rivera had thought. He called Rivera immediately. I know, she said before he could speak. We intercepted the call. We're moving everyone into position now. Donovan's going to hit your house tonight. We'll be ready. And if you're wrong, if he comes sooner, if he has more people than you think, then you need to get Logan out of there, now. I can have agents at your location in 20 minutes. Gunfire erupted downstairs. Logan! Richard screamed, dropping the phone. He ran out of his study and down the stairs. The front door had been blown open. 2 of Jake's guards lay on the floor, bleeding but alive. The third guard was firing at figures dressed in black who poured through the entrance. Upstairs, the guard shouted. Get the boy! Richard sprinted up the stairs 3 at a time. Logan's door was still locked. He fumbled with the keys, hands shaking. The door flew open. Logan stood there in his pajamas, eyes wide with terror. We have to go, Richard said. Now. He grabbed Logan and ran to the back staircase. They could hear Donovan's men searching the house, kicking in doors, shouting orders. Richard's heart pounded. There were too many of them. They'd never make it out the front. They reached the kitchen. The back door was ahead. Freedom was 20 feet away. Stop! Richard froze. A man stood blocking the door, gun pointed at them. The same masked man from before. End of the line, he said. Logan whimpered, pressing against Richard's legs. Richard raised his hands. Please, he's just a child. He's Donovan's property. He's not property, Richard said, his voice shaking with anger. He's a human being. The man cocked his gun. Makes no difference to me. Richard's mind raced. He had seconds to act. Seconds before Logan was taken, or they were both killed. He saw a knife on the counter, 5 feet away, too far. Time's up, the masked man said, finger tightening on the trigger. And then the kitchen window exploded inward. FBI agents in tactical gear crashed through, shouting commands. The masked man spun, firing wildly. Bullets tore through cabinets. Richard threw himself over Logan, covering him completely with his body. The gunfight lasted maybe 10 seconds. It felt like a lifetime. When silence fell, Richard looked up. The masked man lay on the floor, handcuffed. FBI agents secured the rest of the house. Rivera appeared, breathing hard. Everyone okay? Richard nodded, unable to speak. Logan peeked out from behind him. Is it over? The boy asked in a small voice. Not yet, Rivera said grimly. This was just the first wave. Donovan sent his men to grab you before our planned operation tomorrow night. He knows we're on to him. So what now? Richard asked. Rivera looked at them both. Now we accelerate the plan. We go after Donovan tonight. Tonight? Richard echoed. It's our only chance. He'll disappear if we don't move now. And he'll keep hunting Logan forever. Richard looked down at Logan. The boy was shaking, tears streaming down his face. But there was something else in his eyes now. Determination. What do you need us to do? Richard asked quietly. Donovan has a compound outside the city, heavily guarded. We've been watching it for months, but never had enough evidence for a warrant until now. She showed him aerial photos of a massive estate surrounded by walls and security cameras. Logan's testimony about the house gave us probable cause. We're raiding it in 2 hours, but we need Logan there to identify Donovan and anyone else he recognizes. You want to bring him to a raid? Richard couldn't believe what he was hearing. He'll be in an armored vehicle a safe distance away, Rivera assured him. But yes, we need him there. Richard wanted to refuse, to grab Logan and run as far away as they could, but Logan spoke first. I'll do it. Richard looked at him in shock. Logan, you don't have to. Yes, I do. The boy's voice was stronger than Richard had ever heard it. Alex died because of me. Other kids are getting hurt because of me. I have to help stop him. You're 6 years old. I'm the only one who can identify all of them. Logan looked up at Rivera. Right? Rivera nodded slowly. You're very brave, Logan. I'm not brave, Logan said quietly. I'm just tired of being scared. Richard's throat tightened. This child had more courage than most adults he knew, including himself. Okay, he said finally, but I'm going too. Wherever Logan goes, I go. Rivera didn't argue. Get ready. We leave in 1 hour. The next hour passed in a blur. Richard and Logan were fitted with bulletproof vests. Rivera briefed them on the plan. FBI agents swarmed the house, turning it into a command center. As they prepared to leave, Richard knelt in front of Logan. Are you sure about this? Logan nodded. Alex would want me to be brave. Alex would want you to be safe. Maybe being brave is how I stay safe, Logan said simply. Richard pulled him into a hug. You're an incredible kid, you know that? You're a pretty good dad, Logan whispered back. The words hit Richard like lightning. Dad. Logan had called him Dad. They drove through the night in an armored FBI vehicle. Logan sat between Richard and Rivera, his small hand clutched in Richard's larger one. As they approached Donovan's compound, Rivera's radio crackled with updates. All teams in position, waiting for your signal. They parked on a hill overlooking the estate. Through binoculars, Richard could see lights blazing in every window. Armed guards patrolled the grounds. How many people are in there? Richard asked. We estimate 20 to 30, Rivera said. But we have 50 agents surrounding the compound. They won't escape. She turned to Logan. Okay, kiddo, I need you to look at these photos. She pulled out a tablet showing surveillance images of people entering and leaving the compound. Do you recognize any of them? Logan studied each photo carefully. Then his finger shook as he pointed at one. That's him. That's my father. Victor Donovan, the monster himself. Logan continued looking. He pointed out 3 more men. They worked for my father. They used to bring the kids to the house. Good, Rivera said, making notes. Anyone else? Logan's eyes widened. He pointed at another photo. That's a police officer. He came to the house once. My father gave him money. Rivera's jaw clenched. Which precinct? Logan shook his head. I don't know, but he wore a uniform. Rivera radioed the information to her team. We've got confirmation of a dirty cop. Everyone stay alert. She checked her watch. It's time. She spoke into her radio. All teams go, go, go. The compound exploded into chaos. FBI agents crashed through gates. Helicopters appeared overhead. Spotlights blazing. Sirens wailed. Through the binoculars, Richard watched as Donovan's guards scrambled. Some surrendered immediately. Others fired back. Logan pressed against Richard, trembling. Is anyone getting hurt? The FBI knows what they're doing, Richard said, trying to sound confident. But his heart raced as he watched the battle unfold below them. Then Rivera's radio crackled urgently. We've got a runner. Subject matching Donovan's description. Heading to the east wall. Repeat. Donovan is escaping. No, Rivera shouted into the radio. Don't let him get away. Richard watched through the binoculars as a figure in black scaled the compound wall and dropped to the other side. Donovan was escaping, and he was running straight toward their location. Rivera saw it too. Get in the vehicle now! They scrambled inside. The driver started the engine, but it was too late. Donovan appeared from the darkness, gun raised. He fired twice. The front tires exploded. The vehicle lurched to a stop. Rivera drew her weapon, but Donovan was faster. He fired at the door, and Rivera ducked back, cursing. Give me my son, Donovan screamed. Give him to me, or I'll kill all of you. Richard pulled Logan down, shielding him. Stay down, he whispered. Donovan fired again, shattering the window. Glass rained down on them. I'm not leaving without Logan, Donovan shouted. You hear me? I'll burn this entire hillside if I have to. Rivera was on her radio. Officer down. Suspect Donovan at our location. Need immediate backup. But backup was minutes away and Donovan was right outside. Richard looked at Logan. The boy was crying silently, his face pale with terror. And Richard realized something that made his blood run cold. Donovan wasn't going to stop. Not tonight, not ever. Not unless someone stopped him permanently. Richard made a decision that would change everything. He reached for the door handle. What are you doing? Rivera hissed. Ending this, Richard said. And before anyone could stop him, he opened the door and stepped out into the darkness. Face to face with the monster who'd killed his daughter. Richard stood in the rain, hands raised, facing Victor Donovan. The man was tall and imposing, just as Logan had described. Dark hair slicked back against his skull, expensive clothing now soaked through, and a jagged scar running down his left cheek that pulled his upper lip into a permanent sneer. This was the monster who had killed Alexandra. This was the monster who had trafficked children. This was the monster who had fathered Logan. You must be the father, Donovan said, his voice dripping with contempt. The rich businessman who thinks money can solve everything. You killed my daughter, Richard said quietly, rain streaming down his face. Donovan shrugged, gun unwavering. She got in my way, just like you're doing now. She was trying to save children, innocent children. There's no such thing as innocence, Mr. Cole. Donovan's smile was cold and calculating. There's only power and weakness. Your daughter was weak. She thought she could change the world. The world changed her instead, Richard finished, understanding dawning in his eyes. You ordered her killed. Business decision, nothing personal. Donovan raised the gun higher. Now give me my son, and maybe I'll let you live. Rage boiled in Richard's chest, a furnace of hatred that threatened to consume him, but he pushed it down. This wasn't about revenge. This was about protecting Logan. He's not your son, Richard said, his voice steady despite the gun aimed at his heart. You lost that right when you turned him into a prisoner. Donovan's face twisted with anger. He is my blood, my property, and I'm taking him back. Behind Richard, inside the vehicle, Logan screamed, "No, don't hurt him!" The boy tried to climb out, but Rivera grabbed him. "Logan, stay inside," she ordered. Donovan's eyes locked onto the vehicle. "Logan, come here now." "I won't," Logan shouted, his voice breaking with fear and defiance. "You're a bad man. Alex said so. She said you hurt people." "Alexandra was a liar," Donovan snarled, "just like everyone else who tried to take you from me." "You don't love me," Logan cried. "You never loved me. You only want me because I can tell people what you did." Donovan's mask slipped. For just a moment, Richard saw something in his eyes. Not love, not even anger. Fear. Pure, undiluted fear. Logan was right. Donovan didn't want his son back out of paternal affection. He wanted to silence him. "You're going to kill him," Richard said slowly, the horrible truth dawning on him. "That's why you're so desperate. Logan is a witness. He can destroy your entire operation." Donovan's jaw clenched. "Shut up!" "The FBI already rescued those 12 children," Richard continued, his voice growing stronger. "They already found your house with the locked rooms. It's over, Donovan. Your empire is falling apart." "Then I have nothing to lose," Donovan said coldly. He aimed the gun at Richard's chest. "Starting with you." Time seemed to slow down. Richard saw Donovan's finger tighten on the trigger, saw the hatred in his eyes, saw death coming for him. And then a voice cut through the night. "Victor, stop!" Everyone froze. A woman stepped out of the shadows, thin and exhausted, with hollow eyes and trembling hands. Her dark hair was plastered to her skull by the rain, but there was steel in her spine as she faced Donovan. Donovan's face went white. "Olivia?" "Hello, Victor?" Richard's mind raced. Olivia, Logan's mother, the woman Donovan had supposedly killed. "You're dead," Donovan whispered. "I saw them take you." "You saw them take someone," Olivia said. "Someone who looked like me, someone you'd hired to replace me because I wasn't useful anymore." Her voice broke slightly on the last words, betraying the pain beneath her calm exterior. "I ran, Victor. I ran, and I've been hiding for over a year." From inside the vehicle, Logan made a sound like a wounded animal. "Mama?" Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "Logan, my baby, stay there. I'll come to you." She took a step forward, but Donovan swung his gun toward her. "Don't move." "I'm not afraid of you anymore," Olivia said, standing her ground. "I was afraid for so long. Afraid of what you'd do to me, to Logan, but I'm done being afraid." "I should have killed you myself," Donovan hissed. "You tried, multiple times, but I survived." Olivia pulled something from her jacket, a small digital recorder. "And I've been recording everything. Every name, every location, every deal you made, every child you sold." Donovan's face twisted. "You're lying." "Am I?" Olivia pressed a button on the recorder. Donovan's voice filled the night, discussing prices, negotiating deliveries, ordering the murder of anyone who got in his way, including Alexandra. "That conversation was from 3 months ago," Olivia said, her voice cold as the rain that fell around them. "The night you ordered Alexandra Cole's death. I was there, Victor, hidden in your office. I heard everything." Richard's legs nearly gave out beneath him. Here was proof, undeniable proof that Donovan had murdered Alexandra. "The FBI has copies," Olivia continued. "Everything. If anything happens to me, to Logan, to anyone here, it all gets released. Your network, your clients, your partners, everyone goes down." Donovan stood frozen, his gun wavering slightly. "It's over," Olivia said softly. "Let our son go. Let him have the life you stole from him." For a long moment, no one moved. No one breathed. The only sound was the rain falling steadily around them, drumming on the roof of the vehicle, washing away the blood and dirt of the night. Then Donovan laughed. It was a broken, desperate sound that echoed across the hillside. "You think I'm afraid of prison," he said. "I've spent my whole life in prison. A prison of my own making. A prison of doing whatever it takes to survive." "Then stop surviving and start living," Olivia pleaded. "For once in your miserable life, do the right thing. Let Logan go." Donovan's hands shook. The gun dipped slightly. "I can't," he whispered, something almost human flashing across his face. "I don't know how to be anything else." Then learn, Richard said, taking a step closer. It's not too late. Donovan looked at him with eyes that had seen too much darkness. Your daughter thought that too. Look where it got her. My daughter died a hero, Richard said fiercely. She saved Logan. She gathered evidence that's going to free dozens of children. Her life meant something. He paused, letting the words sink in. Can you say the same? Donovan's face crumpled. For just a second, he looked almost human, almost sorry. Then his expression hardened again. I'm not going to prison. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life in a cage. He raised the gun again, but this time he pointed it at himself, pressing the barrel against his own temple. No, Olivia screamed. Donovan's finger moved to the trigger, and in that moment, Logan did something no one expected. He burst out of the vehicle, running past Rivera's grabbing hands. Daddy, don't, the boy cried. Donovan's head whipped around. Logan. The boy stopped a few feet away, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the rain. Please don't die. I don't want you to die. Logan, get back, Richard started, but Logan shook his head, his small body trembling with emotion. I remember when I was little, Logan said, his voice shaking but determined. Before everything got bad, you used to read me stories. You used to make me laugh, I remember. Donovan's eyes widened. You remember that? I remember you were my daddy once before you became the bad man. Logan took a step closer, his eyes never leaving Donovan's. I don't want the bad man to die. I want my daddy back. Donovan's face twisted with anguish. The gun trembled in his hand. I can't be that person anymore. I've done too many terrible things. Alex said everyone deserves a second chance, Logan whispered. Even bad people. She said people can change if they try hard enough. Your Alexandra was wrong, Donovan said, his voice raw with emotion. No, she wasn't, Logan insisted, because she changed me. I used to think I was nobody, that I didn't matter. But she showed me I was wrong. She showed me I could be brave. I could be good. Logan took another step forward, stopping just beyond arm's reach. You can be good too. You just have to try. Donovan stared at his son, at this small, brave child who'd survived everything and still had hope. The gun lowered slowly, inch by inch, until it hung at his side. I'm sorry, Donovan whispered, tears mingling with the rain on his face. Logan, I'm so sorry for everything I did. I know, Logan said quietly. FBI agents emerged from all directions, surrounding them. Rivera stepped forward, weapon drawn. Victor Donovan, you're under arrest, she announced. Donovan didn't resist. He just dropped the gun and sank to his knees in the mud. As agents handcuffed him, he looked at Logan one last time. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know, Logan said again, his small face solemn beyond his years. But maybe someday you will. They led Donovan away. Olivia ran to Logan, dropping to her knees and pulling him into a desperate hug. My baby, she sobbed. My beautiful, brave baby. Logan clung to her, crying into her shoulder. Richard stood apart, watching. Relief flooded through him. It was over. Donovan was captured. Logan was safe. But as he watched Olivia hold her son, a cold realization settled in his chest. Logan had his mother back, which meant Richard would lose him. Rivera approached quietly. That was incredible. You were incredibly brave, Mr. Cole. I didn't do anything, Richard said numbly. Logan did everything. You protected him, Rivera countered. You gave him a safe place when he had nowhere to go. That matters. Richard watched as Olivia examined Logan, checking him for injuries, whispering reassurances. She's his mother, Richard said quietly. She'll take him now. Probably, Rivera said gently. We'll need to verify her identity, make sure she's safe. But yes, Logan belongs with her. The words cut deeper than any knife. Logan belongs with her, not with him. Richard had known this moment would come, had known Logan wasn't his to keep, but knowing didn't make it hurt less. Olivia stood, holding Logan's hand. She walked over to Richard, her eyes red from crying. You saved my son, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me, Richard said. I did what Alexandra would have wanted. Olivia's face softened at the mention of Alexandra. Your daughter was an angel. She helped me escape, gave me money, a place to hide. She told me she'd protect Logan until I could come back for him. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I never got to thank her. She would just be happy Logan is safe, Richard said, meaning it. Olivia hesitated, looking down at Logan. He told me what you did for him, how you brought him into your home, promised to protect him. She glanced at Logan, who was looking up at Richard with those huge, haunted eyes. He said you were like a father to him. Richard's throat tightened painfully. He's an incredible kid. He is, Olivia agreed, squeezing Logan's hand. And he's been through so much, lost so much. Logan looked up at Richard, his voice small but clear. Do I have to leave? The question shattered Richard's heart into a million pieces. Your mom's here now, Richard said, forcing a smile. You're going to be together. That's what matters. But I want to be with you too, Logan whispered. Olivia knelt beside her son. Logan, honey, Mr. Cole has his own life. We can't ask him to. I wasn't asking, Richard interrupted. Mother, I didn't. He looked at Olivia, surprised by his own words. I know I have no right. I know he's your son, but these past few days, his voice cracked. Logan brought something back into my life that I thought I'd lost forever. Hope, purpose, a reason to wake up in the morning. Olivia studied him carefully. You want to be part of his life? I want whatever is best for Logan, Richard said honestly. If that means stepping aside, I will. But if there's any way I can still be there for him, then yes, I want that more than anything. Logan pulled away from his mother and ran to Richard, wrapping his small arms around his waist. Please don't go away. You promised you'd protect me. You promised. Richard held him tight, tears streaming down his face. I'm not going anywhere. Not if you don't want me to. Olivia watched them, her expression unreadable. Then she said quietly, I don't have a home, no job, no money. Donovan took everything from me. Then stay, Richard said without hesitation. Both of you, stay at my house until you figure things out. Take as long as you need. We can't impose. It's not imposing, Richard interrupted. He looked at Logan, who was watching him with hope in his eyes. It's finishing what Alexandra started. She wanted Logan to have a family, a real family. Maybe we can figure out what that looks like together. Olivia's eyes filled with fresh tears. You'd do that for us? I'd do that for him, Richard said, looking at Logan. And for Alexandra. Rivera cleared her throat. I hate to interrupt, but we need statements from everyone. And Logan's mother needs to be processed. Identification, background check, the works. How long will that take? Logan asked nervously. A few days, Rivera said, but I'll make sure you're all kept together. They spent the next several hours at FBI headquarters. Olivia was questioned extensively, her identity confirmed through fingerprints and DNA samples. Logan gave his testimony, describing everything he remembered about his father's operation. Richard provided his statement, detailing Alexandra's video and his encounters with Donovan's men. Finally, in the early hours of the morning, they were released. Richard drove them back to his house, the three of them silent and exhausted. As they pulled into the driveway, Logan asked quietly from the back seat, Is Alex in heaven? The question caught Richard off guard. He glanced at Olivia, who looked equally surprised. I think so, Richard said finally. Yes. Do you think she knows what happened? That we caught my father? I think she knows, Richard said, his throat tight, and I think she's proud of you. Logan was quiet for a moment, then, I want to visit her grave to tell her thank you. We can do that, Richard promised, whenever you're ready. Inside the house, Olivia looked around in awe. This place is beautiful. It's too big for one person, Richard admitted. It always has been. He showed them to their rooms, 2 guest bedrooms connected by a shared bathroom. Olivia looked overwhelmed by the luxury. I don't know what to say, she whispered. We haven't slept in real beds for so long. You don't have to say anything, Richard assured her. Just rest. We'll figure out everything else later. That night, Richard lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His mind replayed everything that had happened. The cemetery, the investigation, the raid, Donovan's arrest. Alexandra's voice from the video echoed in his head. Please protect Logan. He'd done it. He'd kept his promise. But the victory felt hollow. Donovan was in custody, but Alexandra was still gone. Nothing would bring her back. A soft knock on his door pulled him from his thoughts. Come in, he called. Logan peeked inside, clutching a blanket to his chest. I can't sleep. Richard sat up. Nightmares? Logan nodded, his small face troubled. Can I stay here just for tonight? Of course. Logan climbed onto the bed, settling beside Richard. For a while, they sat in comfortable silence. Mr. Cole, Logan said quietly. Richard? He corrected gently. You can call me Richard. Richard, Logan repeated, testing the name. What happens now? What do you mean? My father's in jail. My mom's back. Logan fidgeted with the edge of the blanket. But what about us? Are we still going to be a family? Richard's heart squeezed painfully in his chest. Do you want us to be a family? Logan nodded vigorously. I like being here. I like having a mom and someone like you. Someone who protects me and makes me feel safe. Then we'll figure it out, Richard promised. Your mom and I will talk. We'll make sure you have everything you need. I don't need much, Logan said, his voice small. Just people who love me. Richard pulled him close. You've got that, I promise. Logan relaxed against him, his breathing evening out. As the boy drifted to sleep, Richard thought about Alexandra, about the life she'd given up to protect this child, about the legacy she'd left behind. He couldn't bring her back, but he could honor her memory by being the father she believed he could be, by saving the child she died trying to protect, by choosing love over fear, hope over grief, connection over isolation. Dawn broke through the windows, painting the room in gold. A new day, a new beginning. But even as Richard felt hope stirring in his chest, he knew their troubles weren't over. Donovan was in custody, but his network was vast, his allies powerful, his reach long. 3 days passed in peaceful quiet. Olivia and Logan settled into the house, finding a rhythm in their new surroundings. They ate meals together, watched movies, and for the first time in what felt like years, they laughed. Richard watched them with a mixture of joy and apprehension. He was growing attached to both of them, especially Logan. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, that the peace wouldn't last. On the fourth morning, Rivera called. We have a problem, she said without preamble. Richard's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Donovan's been communicating with someone on the outside. We intercepted a coded message yesterday. He's planning something. What? Richard's voice rose in disbelief. How? He's in a federal holding cell. He has people everywhere, Richard. People we haven't identified yet. Rivera's voice was grim. The message mentioned a date, tomorrow night. Richard's blood ran cold. What happens tomorrow night? We don't know, but whatever it is, it involves you and Logan. Richard looked across the kitchen to where Logan was eating breakfast with his mother. Both of them smiling, unaware of the new threat. What do we do? Richard asked quietly. I'm assigning protective custody. Agents will be stationed at your house 24/7. No one gets in or out without clearance. For how long? Until we figure out what Donovan is planning. But even as Rivera said it, Richard could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Donovan had outmaneuvered them before. He could do it again. That afternoon, FBI agents transformed Richard's house into a fortress. Security cameras on every corner. Motion sensors in the gardens. Armed agents patrolling the grounds. Olivia noticed immediately. What's happening, Richard? He hadn't wanted to worry her, but she deserved the truth. Donovan's planning something. The FBI thinks he might try to hurt you and Logan. Olivia's face went white, but he's in prison. He still has allies, people who work for him. We should leave, Olivia said urgently. Go somewhere far away, change our names, disappear. We can't run forever, Richard said gently, touching her arm. Donovan will always find us. The only way to end this is to stop him permanently. How? I don't know yet, Richard admitted, but I'm working on it. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He paced his study, going through everything they knew about Donovan's operation. There had to be something they were missing, some weakness they could exploit. At 2 in the morning, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Cole, this is Victor. I'm using a guard's phone. I know you're reading this. Richard's hands shook. He should call Rivera immediately, but something made him keep reading. Another text appeared. I want to make a deal. Richard hesitated, then typed back. I'm not making deals with you. The response came immediately. Even if it means saving Logan's life? Richard froze. He stared at the screen, his heart hammering. I'll take your silence as interest. Meet me tomorrow. Prison visiting hours. Come alone. This was a trap. Obviously a trap. But what if it wasn't? What if Donovan genuinely wanted to negotiate? He texted back. What kind of deal? I have information. Names of people in my network who are planning to come after Logan. People even the FBI doesn't know about. I'll give you everything in exchange for one thing. What? Let me see my son one last time. Richard's jaw clenched. Donovan wanted to see Logan. After everything, after all the pain and fear he'd caused. Why would I let you anywhere near him? Because without my information, Logan will never be safe. My people will keep coming forever. Richard sat in the darkness, his mind racing. This could be their only chance to truly end the threat. Or it could be exactly what Donovan wanted, a way to hurt Logan one more time. He made a decision he knew he might regret. I'll come tomorrow, but Logan stays away from you. Then no deal. I want to see my son or you get nothing. Richard's hands clenched into fists. If you hurt him, I'm not going to hurt him. I just want to tell him goodbye. That's all. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Richard wanted to refuse. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong. But Logan would never be safe unless they destroyed Donovan's entire network. I'll talk to Olivia and Logan. If they agree, we'll come. They'll agree. Because they know I'm right. This is the only way. The messages stopped. Richard sat in the darkness, feeling like he'd just made a deal with the devil. The next morning, he told Olivia about Donovan's offer. She went pale. Absolutely not. Logan is not going anywhere near that monster. I know how you feel, Richard started. You don't know how I feel, Olivia's voice rose. You didn't live with him for 8 years. You didn't watch him destroy everything good in the world. You're not sending my son to see him. Logan appeared in the doorway, his eyes wide. What's going on? Richard and Olivia exchanged glances. Your father wants to see you, Richard said carefully. Logan's face went white. Why? He says he has information that can keep you safe, but only if he gets to talk to you first. Logan's hands trembled slightly. Will you be there every second? You won't be alone, Richard promised. Not for a moment. Logan looked at his mother. Mama? Olivia's eyes filled with tears. Baby, you don't have to do this. We'll find another way. But what if there isn't another way? Logan asked quietly. What if this is the only chance to stop the bad people? You're 6 years old, Olivia said to everything. Voice breaking, but you shouldn't have to be brave anymore. Alex said being brave isn't about not being scared, Logan replied. It's about doing the right thing even when you are scared. He straightened his small shoulders. I want to go. Olivia closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. You're so much stronger than I ever was. I learned from you, Logan said simply. 2 hours later, they arrived at the Federal Detention Center. Rivera met them at the entrance with a dozen agents. This is a terrible idea, she said bluntly. I know, Richard agreed. Yeah, but it's the only idea we have. Rivera pulled him aside. Donovan is dangerous. Even locked up, he's dangerous. If anything feels wrong, get Logan out immediately. I will. They went through multiple security checkpoints. Guards searched them thoroughly. Finally, they were led to a small visiting room with a glass partition and phones. Donovan sat on the other side wearing an orange jumpsuit. He looked thinner than before, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow. When Logan walked in, those empty eyes filled with tears. Logan, he whispered. Logan climbed onto the chair, picking up the phone with shaking hands. Richard sat beside him, one hand on the boy's shoulder. Olivia stood behind them, her face hard as stone. Hi, Daddy, Logan said quietly. Donovan's face crumpled. You came. You said you had information, Richard reminded him. Information to keep Logan safe. I do, Donovan acknowledged, but first I need to tell you something. He leaned closer to the glass, his voice cracking. I'm sorry, Logan. For everything. For hurting you. For hurting your mother. For being a monster. Okay, Logan said simply. Donovan blinked, clearly not expecting such a simple response. You forgive me? I don't know yet, Logan said thoughtfully. Alex said forgiveness takes time. Donovan smiled sadly. Your Alexandra was wise. She was my friend. She was, Donovan agreed, surprising Richard with his sincerity. And I took her from you, just like I took everything good from everyone. Donovan looked at Richard. Your daughter was brave. She knew I was dangerous, but she tried to save Logan anyway. She succeeded, Richard said coldly. Logan is safe now. For now, Donovan warned, but my people. Tell us about your people, Rivera interrupted, standing by the door. That's why we're here. Donovan nodded slowly. I'll tell you everything, names, addresses, bank accounts, codes, everything you need to dismantle the entire network. In exchange for what? Rivera pressed. You already got to see Logan. Donovan looked at Richard. In exchange for a promise. What kind of promise? Richard asked warily. Take care of my son, Donovan said, his voice low and intense. Give him the life I couldn't. Be the father I should have been. Richard stared at him in disbelief. You're asking me to raise your son? I'm asking you to finish what your daughter started, Donovan replied. Alexandra wanted Logan to have a family, to be loved, to be safe. His voice broke. I can't give him that, but you can. Olivia spoke for the first time, her voice like ice. You don't get to decide that. I know, Donovan acknowledged, turning to face her. But I'm asking anyway. He looked at her, years of shared history in his gaze. Olivia, I know you hate me. You have every right. But Logan needs more than just us. He needs stability, safety, resources. Things we can't give him. We'll figure it out, Olivia said firmly. Will you? Donovan challenged. Where will you live? How will you support him? Logan deserves more than running and hiding. Olivia's jaw clenched. but she didn't answer. Donovan turned back to Logan. What do you want, son? Logan looked at his mother, then at Richard, then back at his father. I want everyone to be together, like a real family. That's not possible, Donovan said gently. Why not? Because I'm going to be in prison for the rest of my life. Logan's eyes filled with tears. Forever? Forever, Donovan confirmed. That's not fair. It's more than fair, Donovan said quietly. I deserve much worse. But Logan, you deserve everything, and I want to make sure you get it. He turned to Rivera, who had placed a recorder on the table. I'm ready. For the next 30 minutes, Donovan spoke rapidly, rattling off names, locations, and codes. Rivera typed frantically on her tablet, recording everything. He detailed the entire structure of his organization, naming corrupt police officers, judges, politicians, and businessmen who had aided his operation. When he finished, Rivera's face was pale. This is massive, she whispered. If this is all true, we can shut down trafficking operations across 6 states. It's all true, Donovan assured her. Every word. Why, Richard asked. Why tell us now? Donovan looked at Logan, who had listened to everything with wide, solemn eyes. Because my son deserves better than this. He deserves to sleep without nightmares, to go to school without fear, to be a kid. His voice cracked. I can't give him that, but I can give him freedom from my shadow. Logan was crying silently. Daddy, I don't want you to go away forever. I know, baby, Donovan said, his own eyes wet. But it's what needs to happen. Can I visit you? Logan asked hesitantly. Donovan glanced at Olivia. That's up to your mother. Olivia's face was stony. We'll see. Donovan nodded, accepting that. He looked at Richard one last time. Promise me. Promise you'll protect him. I already promised that, Richard said, and I intend to keep it. That's why I trust you now, Donovan replied. Alexandra saw something good in you, something worth dying for. His eyes glistened with unshed tears. Don't let her death be for nothing. It won't be, Richard said firmly. I'll make sure of it. A guard knocked on the window. Time's up. Donovan pressed his palm against the glass. Logan placed his small hand on the other side, matching it. Goodbye, Logan, Donovan whispered. Goodbye, Daddy. They stood to leave. Logan cried quietly the whole way out. In the car, Olivia held him close, rocking him gently. You were so brave, baby, she murmured into his hair. I don't feel brave, Logan sobbed. I feel sad. You can be both, Richard said gently from the driver's seat. The bravest people usually are. That night, Rivera called with an update. Donovan's information checked out. We've already arrested 15 people, rescued 23 children, and seized assets worth millions. That's incredible, Richard breathed. It's more than incredible. It's the biggest breakthrough we've had in years. Donovan's testimony is going to change everything. And the threat to Logan? Neutralized, Rivera confirmed. With Donovan cooperating and his network dismantled, Logan is safe. The dangerous ones are either in custody or running scared. They won't risk coming after him now. Richard felt a weight lift from his chest. It's really over. It's really over, Rivera assured him. You can all start living normal lives again. He hung up and found Logan sitting in Alexandra's old room, looking at her photographs. Hey, Richard said gently, sitting beside him. I miss her, Logan said quietly. I miss her too. Do you think she would be proud of us for stopping my father? I think she'd be incredibly proud, Richard said, his throat tight with emotion. Logan was quiet for a moment, then, Richard, can I ask you something? Anything. If my mom says it's okay, could I call you Dad? Richard's vision blurred with tears. Logan, I would be honored. The boy threw his arms around him. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. They sat together in Alexandra's room, holding each other, both of them crying and healing at the same time. Olivia appeared in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. I heard what Logan asked. Richard looked at her nervously. Olivia, I'm not trying to replace you or take Logan from you. I know. She smiled through her tears. And I'm not threatened. Logan has room in his heart for both of us. And honestly, I think Alexandra would want this. She sat down with them, and the three of them held each other, a broken family pieced back together in the most unexpected way. The next day, they visited Alexandra's grave together. Logan placed fresh flowers on the stone and whispered, Thank you for saving me. Thank you for being my friend. I promise I'll be good. I promise I'll make you proud. Richard knelt beside him. She is proud, Logan. I know she is. Olivia stood behind them, one hand on each of their shoulders. As they stood to leave, Logan turned back one last time. Goodbye, Alexandra. I'll come visit you again soon. They walked through the cemetery hand in hand toward the car, toward home, toward a future that was uncertain but filled with hope. Richard thought about everything that had happened. The pain, the fear, the loss, but also the love, the courage, the healing. Alexandra had died trying to save Logan, and in doing so, she'd saved Richard too. Saved him from loneliness, from emptiness, from a life without purpose. Logan had brought light back into his darkness. And Olivia had brought understanding that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about choice, about showing up, about loving someone even when it's hard. As they drove away from the cemetery, the sun broke through the clouds, bathing everything in golden light. A new beginning, a second chance, a family forged not from perfection, but from survival. But as they pulled onto the main road, Richard's phone buzzed, a text from Rivera. Need to talk, urgent. Donovan's lawyer just filed an appeal. Claims new evidence. Call me ASAP. Richard's chest tightened. No, not now. Not when they were finally safe. He glanced in the rearview mirror at Logan, who was smiling and talking with his mother. And Richard realized the truth. They would never be completely safe. Donovan would always be out there somewhere, scheming, planning, waiting. But this time Richard was ready, because he wasn't alone anymore. He had Logan, he had Olivia, and he had Alexandra's memory to guide him. Whatever came next, they would face it together. As a family, Richard woke with a start. A cry caught in his throat. The room was dark, the digital clock showing 4:17 a.m. He had fallen asleep at his desk again, legal papers spread before him, notes scrawled in his exhausted handwriting. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. Then reality returned with crushing weight. 3 weeks had passed since Donovan's lawyer filed the appeal. 3 weeks of legal battles, of fear lingering at the edges of their newfound happiness. Richard rubbed his face, feeling the stubble that had grown unchecked. The text message from Rivera still burned in his memory. Donovan's lawyer just filed an appeal, claims new evidence. New evidence. The words had seemed impossible. Donovan had confessed to everything, had given them names, locations, every detail of his operation. What new evidence could possibly matter? But in the twisted world of high-priced attorneys and legal maneuvering, anything was possible. Richard stood, his body protesting the awkward position he'd slept in. He moved to the window, looking out at the pre-dawn darkness. Somewhere in the distance, a bird began to sing, heralding a new day that Richard wasn't ready to face. A soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. Olivia stood there, a steaming mug in her hand. "You need to sleep in an actual bed," she said, handing him the coffee. "I'll sleep when this is over," Richard replied, taking the mug gratefully. Olivia leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. In the 3 weeks she'd been living in his house, she'd gradually shed the haunted look she'd worn when they first met. Her face had filled out, and there was color in her cheeks again. But this morning, the shadows had returned to her eyes. "Rivera called," she said quietly. "They've scheduled the hearing. Next Monday." Richard's grip tightened on the mug. "So soon?" Apparently, Donovan's lawyer has connections with Judge Howard. The hearing got fast-tracked. The name sent a chill down Richard's spine. Matthew Howard had been a friend once, or so Richard had thought. They'd served together on charity boards, attended the same social events. Richard had even contributed to Howard's judicial campaign years ago. But Howard's name had appeared in Donovan's files. A client, a protector, a fellow predator hiding behind respectability. When Howard had shown up at Richard's door 3 weeks ago, claiming to offer condolences for Alexandra, Richard had sensed something wrong in the way Howard looked at Logan. His suspicions were confirmed when he found Howard's name in the evidence Olivia had collected. "Howard shouldn't be anywhere near this case," Richard said, anger coloring his voice. "It's a clear conflict of interest." That's what Rivera said. "She's trying to get him recused, but his connections run deep." Olivia pushed away from the doorframe, moving to stand beside Richard at the window. "What happens if they win? If they actually overturn his conviction?" Richard couldn't answer. The thought was too terrible to contemplate. "He won't get Logan," he said finally. "I promise you that." Olivia looked at him, eyes searching his face. "You can't promise that. Not if the system is rigged against us." The truth of her words hung between them. No matter how much money Richard had, no matter what resources he could bring to bear, if enough powerful people wanted to protect Donovan, they might succeed. "We have options," Richard said, not entirely believing it himself. "We could leave the country, start over somewhere else." "Run?" Olivia shook her head. "That's no life for Logan, always looking over our shoulders, never feeling safe." "Then we fight," Richard said firmly, "with everything we have." The floorboards creaked in the hallway. They turned to find Logan standing in the doorway, his small frame silhouetted against the dim light. He wore pajamas with dinosaurs on them, a stark reminder of his innocence, despite all he'd endured. "Is my father getting out of jail?" he asked, his voice small but steady. Richard and Olivia exchanged a look. They had tried to shield Logan from the legal battle, but children had a way of knowing when something was wrong. "We don't know yet, sweetheart," Olivia said gently, "but you don't need to worry about that." "I heard you talking," Logan persisted, "about running away." Richard knelt down to Logan's eye level. "We're just talking about possibilities. But no matter what happens, we're going to make sure you're safe. That's our job." "I don't want to run away," Logan said. "This is our home now. Our home." The simple words pierced Richard's heart. In just 3 short weeks, this broken little family had begun to heal, to put down roots. The thought of uprooting them again was almost unbearable. "We'll do everything we can to stay," Richard promised. "Now it's still early. Why don't you try to get some more sleep?" Logan shook his head. "Can we make pancakes instead?" Richard couldn't help but smile. Even in the darkest moments, Logan had a way of bringing light. Pancakes sound perfect. As they moved to the kitchen, the first rays of dawn filtered through the windows. Richard watched as Olivia helped Logan measure flour and baking powder, their heads bent together in concentration. The sight filled him with a fierce protectiveness. This was his family now, and he would do anything, anything, to keep them safe. The sound of the doorbell shattered the peaceful moment. Richard tensed. No one was expected at this hour. He moved to the security panel by the door, checking the camera feed. Rivera stood on the porch, her face grim. Richard opened the door. "What's happened?" "We need to talk," she said, stepping inside. "Privately." In the study, Rivera placed a thick folder on Richard's desk. "Donovan's legal team submitted this as their new evidence. Our inside source got us a copy." Richard opened the folder. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Pictures of Olivia from years ago, but also recent ones. Olivia and Logan at a park, Olivia entering a building, surveillance photos, and most disturbing of all, pictures of Olivia meeting with men in hotel lobbies, taking envelopes, looking furtive. "What is this?" Richard asked, his stomach sinking. "They're claiming Olivia was a willing participant in the trafficking operation," Rivera said quietly, "that she handled money, recruited girls. They have witness statements, financial records. They're painting her as Donovan's partner, not his victim." Richard shook his head. "That's impossible. Olivia was the one who gathered evidence against him. She was helping Alexandra." "I know," Rivera agreed, "but they've constructed a narrative that she turned on Donovan not out of moral outrage, but because of a power struggle. They're saying she wanted to take over parts of his operation and he refused." "It's all lies," Richard insisted. "Of course it is," Rivera said, "but lies crafted by very smart people with a lot of resources, and just enough truth mixed in to make it convincing." Richard looked at the photos again. Olivia did look suspicious in some of them, meeting with unknown men, exchanging packages. Out of context, they painted a damning picture. "What does this mean for the appeal?" Rivera sighed. "If Howard allows this evidence, and I believe he will, Donovan could get a new trial. And if that happens, he might walk. More importantly, he could petition for custody of Logan, claiming Olivia is unfit." "That can't happen," Richard said, his voice hard. "We need to get ahead of this," Rivera agreed. "I need to talk to Olivia, get her side of these photos, find out who these men are, what these meetings were about. We need to build a counter-narrative before the hearing." Richard nodded. "I'll get her." He found Olivia and Logan still in the kitchen, flipping pancakes. The normality of the scene contrasted sharply with the threat looming over them. He hated to shatter their moment of peace. "Olivia," he said softly, "Rivera's here. She needs to speak with you. It's important." Olivia looked up, reading his expression. "Logan, why don't you finish cooking with Richard? I need to talk to Agent Rivera for a bit." Logan nodded, passing the spatula to Richard. "Don't let them burn," he instructed seriously. As Olivia followed Richard to the study, he could feel the tension radiating from her. She knew something was wrong. When she saw the photographs spread across the desk, her face drained of color. "Where did you get these?" "Donovan's legal team submitted them as evidence for his appeal," Rivera explained. "They're claiming you were his partner, not his victim." Olivia sank into a chair, her legs seeming to give out beneath her. "I knew this would happen," she whispered. "I knew they'd twist everything." "We need you to explain these," Rivera said, gesturing to the photos. "Who are these men? What were these meetings about?" Olivia looked at the photos, her hands trembling slightly. Some of them were Donovan's clients, powerful men who bought girls from him. You were meeting with them? Richard couldn't keep the shock from his voice. Olivia looked up at him, eyes pleading for understanding. Not for the reasons they're suggesting. After I escaped from Donovan, I needed information. I needed proof of what he was doing, so her voice faltered. I posed as a new supplier, someone who could provide what Donovan used to give them. You put yourself at risk, Rivera said, to gather evidence. Olivia nodded. I recorded conversations, got names, preferences, proof that would hold up in court. Why didn't you tell me this before? Rivera asked. Because I wasn't entirely legal in how I gathered the evidence, Olivia admitted. I didn't have warrants. I wasn't working with law enforcement. I was just a desperate mother trying to stop a monster. She looked at Richard, her eyes full of fear. I never sold anyone, never hurt anyone. I was trying to save them just like Alexandra was. Richard believed her. But would a judge? Would a jury? Especially when the judge in question was on Donovan's payroll? These men, Rivera said, tapping the photos. Can you identify them? Most of them, yes. Are any of them still free, not arrested in our raids? Olivia nodded slowly. At least 3. They were too powerful, too insulated. I never got enough on them. We need to find them, Rivera said. Get them to testify about your true intentions, or find evidence that contradicts Donovan's narrative. They would never testify, Olivia said bitterly. They'd be incriminating themselves. Then we need to find another way to prove your innocence, Richard said. The 3 of them fell silent, the weight of the challenge before them hanging in the air. From the kitchen came the sound of Logan humming to himself, blissfully unaware of the storm gathering around him. There is one person who might help, Olivia said finally. A woman named Claire Bennett. She worked for Donovan as his bookkeeper. She knew everything, every transaction, every client, every victim. She was forced to keep his records, but she secretly kept her own as well. Insurance, she called it. Where is she now? Rivera asked. I don't know. When I escaped, she helped me, gave me money, contacts. Then she disappeared. Olivia looked up, but she would know the truth. She could prove I was never Donovan's partner. We'll find her, Rivera promised. In the meantime, we need to prepare for the hearing. If Howard allows this evidence, we need to be ready with our own narrative. After Rivera left, Richard returned to the kitchen. Logan had finished making pancakes and was now eating them, drowning each bite in maple syrup. Richard and Olivia exchanged a look over his head. Neither wanted to shatter this moment of normalcy with the truth of what they faced. Later, as Logan watched cartoons in the living room, Richard and Olivia sat on the back patio, speaking in low voices. I should have told you everything, Olivia said, about how I gathered evidence. I was afraid you would think less of me. Nothing could make me think less of you, Richard assured her. You did what you had to do to protect Logan. Will it be enough? She asked, looking out at the garden where Logan had been playing just yesterday, his laughter filling the air. What if they take him, Richard? What if Donovan gets custody? I won't let that happen, Richard said firmly. I have resources, connections. If the legal system fails us, we'll find another way. What other way is there? Richard didn't answer. The thoughts forming in his mind were dangerous, bordering on illegal. But for Logan, for the boy who had called him Dad, he would cross any line. The next days passed in a flurry of activity. Rivera searched for Claire Bennett, following every lead, every trace. Richard's lawyers prepared for the hearing, building a case against Howard's obvious conflict of interest, though they held little hope it would succeed. Through it all, they tried to maintain a sense of normalcy for Logan. He started attending a private school under heavy security. He made friends, brought home art projects, talked excitedly about his teacher and classmates. Watching him blossom despite the shadows hanging over them gave Richard hope. 3 days before the hearing, Rivera called. We found her, she said without preamble. Claire Bennett. She's been living under an assumed name in Seattle. Will she help us? Richard asked. She's scared, Rivera admitted. Terrified, actually. But she's agreed to video conference with us tonight. She says she has information that could help Olivia. That night, they gathered in Richard's study. Rivera set up a secure connection on Richard's computer. When the call connected, a woman appeared on screen. Claire Bennett was in her 50s, with streaks of gray in her dark hair and lines of worry etched deeply into her face. Ms. Bennett, Rivera began, thank you for speaking with us. Claire nodded, her eyes darting nervously. I won't show my face in court. I want to be clear about that. I've spent years hiding from Donovan and his people. I won't risk my life. We understand, Rivera assured her. but any information you can provide about Olivia's role. Olivia was a victim, Claire interrupted. One of many. Donovan kept her isolated, controlled. When she tried to leave the first time, he had her beaten so badly she couldn't walk for a week. Olivia flinched at the memory. Richard reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. What about these accusations? Rivera asked, holding up the photographs. That Olivia was Donovan's partner? Claire gave a bitter laugh. Partner? Donovan didn't have partners. He had slaves and he had puppets, people he owned or people he controlled through fear. She leaned closer to the camera. Olivia was never willing, never complicit. She was trying to survive, to protect her son. Do you have proof? Richard asked. I kept records, Claire said. Every transaction, every client, every victim, including notes about Olivia's situation. Where are these records now? Rivera pressed. Claire hesitated. I hid them in a place Donovan would never look. We need those records for the hearing, Rivera said. I can't go back there, Claire said, fear evident in her voice. His people might still be watching. Tell us where, Richard said. We'll get them. Claire looked at each of them in turn, weighing her decision. Finally, she nodded. They're in a storage unit in Los Angeles, under the name Margaret Winters. She gave them the address and the key code. There's a false bottom in the blue trunk. Everything is there. Thank you, Olivia said, speaking for the first time. I know what it cost you to help us. Claire's expression softened. We were all victims, Olivia. It's time we stopped living in fear. The call ended, leaving them with a flicker of hope. Rivera immediately began making arrangements to retrieve the records. Richard's security team would accompany her to Los Angeles. This could change everything, Rivera said. If Claire's records are as detailed as she claims, we could not only exonerate Olivia, but also bring down more of Donovan's network, including Judge Howard. Be careful, Richard warned. If Howard really is involved, he has resources. He'll know we're looking for evidence against him. Rivera nodded. We'll be discreet. I'm taking only people I trust completely. After she left, Richard found Olivia in the garden, watching as Logan played with the family dog, a golden retriever rescue they had adopted 2 weeks ago. The animal had become Logan's constant companion, a source of comfort and joy. Do you think Claire's records will be enough? Olivia asked without turning. I hope so, Richard said, but we'll be prepared either way. What does that mean? Richard hesitated, then decided Olivia deserved the truth. I've made arrangements. If things go badly at the hearing, I have a plane waiting. Passports, new identities, funds that can't be traced. We can be gone before Donovan or Howard can react. Olivia turned to face him, her expression a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. You would do that? Give up everything you've built here? None of it matters compared to you and Logan, Richard said simply. Tears filled Olivia's eyes. I never thought I'd find someone who would fight for us this way. Not after everything with Victor. Alexandra fought for you, Richard reminded her. She saw what I didn't, that some things are worth risking everything for. Olivia stepped closer, taking his hands in hers. I wish she could see us now. See how much you've changed. I think she can, Richard said softly. I feel her with us sometimes, guiding us. They stood together in the fading light, watching Logan's carefree play. For a moment, they allowed themselves to hope that their new family might survive the storm coming their way. The night before the hearing, Richard couldn't sleep. He paced his study, going over every detail of their strategy. Rivera had returned from Los Angeles with Claire's records, a treasure trove of evidence implicating dozens of powerful people, including Judge Howard. But would it be enough? Would they be allowed to present it at the hearing? A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Olivia stood in the doorway, wrapped in a robe, her hair loose around her shoulders. You should try to sleep, she said. Tomorrow will be difficult enough without exhaustion. I can't turn my mind off, Richard admitted. Olivia entered the study, moving to the window where Richard stood. I keep thinking about how quickly everything can change, she said. 3 weeks ago, Logan and I had nothing. We were running, hiding. Now we have a home, safety. She looked up at him. We have you. And you'll always have me, Richard promised. Whatever happens tomorrow. I'm scared, Olivia whispered, her composure cracking. Not for me, but for Logan. He's finally happy, finally feeling safe to have that ripped away again. Richard pulled her into an embrace, feeling her tears soak through his shirt. It won't happen, he vowed. I won't let it. They stood like that for a long time, drawing strength from each other. When they finally separated, something had changed between them. The shared fear, the shared purpose, had forged a bond deeper than either had expected. Morning came too quickly. They dressed in somber colors as if attending a funeral rather than a hearing. Logan, sensing the tension, was unusually quiet as he got ready for school. "Will you pick me up today?" he asked Richard, straightening his school uniform. "Of course," Richard assured him, though he had no idea what the day would bring. "I'll be there at 3, just like always." Logan nodded, seemingly satisfied. At the door, he hugged Richard tightly. "I love you, Dad," he whispered. "I love you too, son," Richard replied, his throat tight with emotion. They watched as Logan climbed into the SUV with Richard's security team. 2 armed guards would stay with him at school all day, vigilant against any threat. At the courthouse, reporters clustered on the steps. Donovan's case had become a media sensation. The wealthy trafficking kingpin claiming innocence, accusing his former victim of being the true criminal. Richard and Olivia pushed through the crowd, Rivera at their side. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Richard's legal team waited at the defense table. Across the aisle, Donovan sat with his attorneys, an expensive suit replacing his prison jumpsuit. He looked up as they entered, his eyes fixing on Olivia with an expression Richard couldn't read. Judge Howard entered, his robes sweeping around him as he took his place at the bench. His gaze swept the courtroom, lingering briefly on Richard and Olivia before settling on the papers before him. "This hearing is to consider new evidence in the appeal of Victor Donovan," Howard began, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "The defense has submitted evidence suggesting that a key witness, Olivia Morrison, may have been complicit in Mr. Donovan's alleged crimes." Richard's lead attorney, Sarah Chen, stood. "Your Honor, before we proceed, we wish to formally request that you recuse yourself from this case due to conflict of interest." Howard's eyebrows rose. "On what grounds, Ms. Chen?" "Evidence has come to light suggesting Your Honor had personal dealings with the defendant," Chen replied. "Dealings that would compromise your impartiality in this case." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Howard's face darkened. "That's a serious accusation, Counselor. Do you have evidence to support it?" "We do, Your Honor." Chen nodded to Rivera, who approached with a folder. "Financial records showing payments from companies controlled by Mr. Donovan to accounts associated with Your Honor. Communications regarding services provided by Mr. Donovan's organization." Howard's face had gone pale. "I will review these in chambers. This court is in recess for 1 hour." As Howard swept from the courtroom, Donovan leaned toward his attorneys, his expression thunderous. Richard caught his eye across the room. For a moment, the two men stared at each other, the weight of all that had happened, of Alexandra's death, of Logan's suffering, hanging between them. "What happens now?" Olivia whispered. "Howard has 2 choices," Rivera explained quietly. "He can recuse himself, which would delay the hearing until a new judge is assigned, or he can deny any impropriety and proceed." "And if he chooses the latter?" Richard asked. "Then we present Claire's evidence about Olivia, along with everything implicating Howard. It becomes very public very quickly." The hour dragged by. Richard and Olivia sat in a small conference room, barely speaking, the tension too great for words. When they finally returned to the courtroom, Howard was already seated, his expression unreadable. "After careful consideration," Howard began, "I have decided to recuse myself from this case due to the appearance of a conflict of interest. This hearing will be rescheduled once a new judge is assigned." Relief washed through Richard. It wasn't a victory, but it was a reprieve. Howard had chosen to protect himself rather than Donovan. As the courtroom began to empty, Donovan's attorney approached. "My client wishes to speak with Ms. Morrison, alone." "Absolutely not," Richard said immediately. "It's about Logan," the attorney pressed. "Mr. Donovan has information he feels Miss Morrison should hear." Olivia hesitated, then nodded. "I'll speak with him, but not alone. Richard comes with me." The attorney looked like he wanted to object, but finally nodded. 5 minutes, in the conference room. Donovan waited for them, seated at the table, his hands folded before him. Despite the expensive suit, he looked diminished somehow, the power he once wielded now just a memory. "Thank you for seeing me," he said as they entered. "I know you have no reason to listen to anything I say." "What do you want, Victor?" Olivia asked, her voice steady. "To warn you," Donovan replied, "this isn't over, not by a long shot." "Your appeal will fail," Richard said. "We have Claire's evidence now. It exonerates Olivia and implicates you and your allies even further." "This was never about the appeal," Donovan said, a bitter smile touching his lips. "That was just a distraction. The real threat comes from somewhere else entirely." "What are you talking about?" Olivia demanded. Donovan leaned forward. "Do you really think I was the only one running this operation? That I didn't have partners, backers, people above me in the hierarchy? Richard felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. Who? Someone more powerful than you can imagine, Donovan said. Someone who makes me look like a street corner dealer. He calls himself the broker. He facilitated everything, the clients, the international connections, the political protection. I was just a regional manager. Why are you telling us this? Olivia asked. Because he's coming for Logan, Donovan said simply. Not because Logan is my son, but because of what he saw, what he knows. Logan was 5 years old, Richard objected. What could he possibly know that would threaten someone that powerful? He saw the broker, Donovan said, face to face. He could identify him, and that makes him the most dangerous witness of all. Olivia's face had gone white. Who is he, this broker? Donovan shook his head. I don't know his real name. Few do, but he's someone respectable, someone above suspicion, someone with the resources to reach anywhere, even into federal custody. He touched his wrist, where a faded bruise was visible beneath his shirt cuff. He sent me a message last week, a reminder of what happens to those who talk too much. Why should we believe you, Richard asked. This could be another manipulation. Believe what you want, Donovan said, leaning back. But ask yourself this. Why would Howard recuse himself so easily? Why not fight? Because he got new orders. Because this was never about freeing me or getting custody of Logan. It was about locating him, confirming where he is, who he's with, setting the stage for what comes next. The guard at the door signaled that their time was up. As they stood to leave, Donovan spoke again, his voice barely audible. Protect my son, Cole, like I never could. Outside the courthouse, Rivera waited with the car. As they drove back to Richard's house, they relayed Donovan's warning. It could be true, Rivera admitted. We've always suspected Donovan was part of a larger network. The scale of his operation, the political protection, it always suggested someone bigger pulling the strings. So what do we do, Olivia asked. If this broker is as powerful as Donovan claims, nowhere is safe. We prepare, Richard said firmly. We increase security. We follow the contingency plan if necessary. Running won't solve this, Rivera cautioned. If this person is as connected as Donovan suggests, he'll find you eventually. Then we fight, Richard said. We use Claire's evidence, Donovan's testimony, everything we have to expose this entire network. They arrived at the house, the normalcy of the familiar structure, at odds with the existential threat they now faced. Richard checked the security system, confirming that everything was functioning. They had 2 hours before they needed to pick up Logan from school. Olivia went upstairs to lie down, the stress of the day finally catching up to her. Richard retreated to his study, mind racing with plans and contingencies. If Donovan was telling the truth, they faced an enemy more dangerous than they had imagined. He was reviewing security protocols when his phone rang. The school's number flashed on the screen. Mr. Cole, the principal's voice was tight with tension. We have a situation. A man claiming to be Logan's uncle arrived to pick him up at Dismantling. When our staff refused to release him, he became agitated. Security intervened, but what? Richard demanded, his heart pounding. The man had a federal court order, Mr. Cole, signed by a judge, authorizing him to take custody of Logan immediately. Richard was already moving, grabbing his keys. Don't let him take Logan. I'm on my way. Is my security team there? Yes, they're with Logan now. They're refusing to honor the court order without confirmation from you. Good, keep Logan inside. Call the police. Richard hung up, shouting for Rivera as he ran upstairs. They're trying to take Logan, he explained breathlessly. At the school, right now. They raced to the car, Olivia joining them, her face pale with fear. Richard drove recklessly, cutting through traffic, running red lights. The school was 15 minutes away in normal traffic. They made it in 7. The scene at the school was chaos. Police cars blocked the entrance, lights flashing. Richard abandoned his car and ran toward the building, Olivia and Rivera close behind. Inside, they found Logan in the principal's office, surrounded by Richard's security team. The boy looked terrified but unharmed. When he saw them, he launched himself into Olivia's arms. Mama, they tried to take me. You're safe now, Olivia soothed, holding him tight. We've got you. Richard turned to the head of his security team. What happened? A man showed up with what looked like a legitimate court order, the guard explained. When we refused to comply, he called for backup. 2 men claiming to be federal marshals. Were they? Rivera asked sharply. The guard shook his head. Their credentials looked real, but something was off. When I insisted on calling you directly, they got aggressive. That's when we locked down with Logan and called the police. Where are they now? Richard asked. Police detained them, but they'll have to release them soon if those credentials check out. Rivera was already on her phone calling her FBI contacts to verify the marshals' identities. Her expression grew increasingly grim as she listened. The credentials are real, she said after hanging up. But these men aren't assigned to any custody transfer. Someone is using legitimate federal resources to try to take Logan. The implications were staggering. If the broker had the power to commandeer federal marshals and fabricate court orders, they were dealing with someone at the highest levels of power. We need to get Logan somewhere safe, Richard said. Now. Your house isn't secure anymore, Rivera warned. If they know which school he attends, they know where you live. The contingency plan, Richard said, meeting Olivia's eyes. It's time. She nodded, understanding instantly. How soon? 2 hours, Richard said. I'll make the calls. As they hurried to the car, Logan clutched between them. Richard's phone rang. An unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Mr. Cole. The voice was cultured, pleasant, almost friendly. You've had quite a day. Who is this? Richard demanded. Someone who admires your dedication to the boy. It's touching, really, misguided but touching. A chill ran down Richard's spine. The broker. It had to be. What do you want? What I've always wanted, the voice replied calmly, to protect my interests. Logan Donovan represents a significant liability to those interests. He's a child, Richard said, his voice low with anger. He's a witness, the man corrected, the only living person who can identify me. That makes him dangerous. If you harm him, I'm not a monster, Mr. Cole, the voice interrupted smoothly. I don't hurt children unnecessarily. I simply remove problems efficiently. But I'm calling to offer you an alternative. Richard listened, his grip on the phone tightening with each word. Bring the boy to the old warehouse at the port. Tonight at midnight. Come alone. I'll ensure he's placed with a good family overseas. New identity, new life. He'll be well cared for, educated, given every advantage, and you and Ms. Morrison will be generously compensated for your cooperation. And if I refuse, Richard asked, though he already knew the answer. Then I'll take him anyway, the voice said, all pretense of friendliness gone. And I'll eliminate anyone who stands in my way, including you, Ms. Morrison and Agent Rivera. You've seen what I can do with federal resources. Imagine what else I'm capable of. The call ended. Richard stood frozen, the phone still pressed to his ear. Olivia touched his arm, concern in her eyes. Richard, who was that? He told them everything. The offer, the threat, the deadline. We can't let him take Logan, Olivia said fiercely. We won't, Richard promised, but we need a new plan. He knows about our contingency. He's watching us. Rivera had been listening silently. Now she spoke. I think I know who the broker is. They turned to her, hope mingling with dread. Claire's records contained communications between Donovan and someone referred to only as LOL, financial transactions, arrangements for clients. The dates correspond to what we know about the broker's activities. LL, Richard repeated. That could be anyone. Not anyone, Rivera said. Lawrence Lowell. The name hung in the air between them. Lawrence Lowell, billionaire philanthropist, former diplomat, friend to presidents and prime ministers. A man whose foundation supposedly rescued trafficking victims around the world. It's the perfect cover, Rivera continued. He has access to government resources, international connections, political protection. And his foundation gives him legitimate reason to move children across borders. Can you prove it? Richard asked. Not yet, Rivera admitted, but with Claire's records, Donovan's testimony, and if Logan could identify him. We're not using Logan as bait, Olivia said firmly. No, Richard agreed, but we still need a plan for tonight. The broker, Lowell, won't stop coming for him. They spent the next hours in tense preparation. Rivera called in trusted FBI agents, people she knew weren't compromised. Richard's security team fortified the house as best they could, though all of them knew it wouldn't hold against a determined assault. As night fell, Richard found Logan in Alexandra's old room. The boy sat on the floor looking through a photo album he'd found. She looks happy here, Logan said, pointing to a picture of Alexandra on a beach, laughing into the camera. She was, Richard said, sitting beside him. That was our last vacation together before she met me, Logan finished. Hey, Richard said gently, turning Logan to face him. Alexandra's death wasn't your fault. Never think that. But if she hadn't tried to help me, then she wouldn't have been the Alexandra I raised, Richard said firmly. My daughter always fought for what was right, even when it was hard. Even when it was dangerous. I didn't understand that about her until I met you. Logan leaned against him, small and warm and trusting. Are the bad people coming for me again? Richard hesitated, then decided Logan deserved the truth. Yes, but we're going to stop them. We're going to end this once and for all. I'm scared, Logan admitted, but I want to help. Alex would want me to be brave. Richard pulled him close. You've already been braver than anyone should ever have to be. As midnight approached, Richard, Olivia, and Logan waited in the living room. The house was dark except for a single lamp. Rivera and her team had taken positions around the property, invisible in the shadows. The plan was simple but dangerous. When Lowell's men came, they would appear to surrender, to agree to his terms. Rivera would follow them to the meeting point. With enough evidence and witnesses, they could bring down the broker once and for all. The clock struck 12. Richard tensed, expecting the doorbell or a phone call, but nothing happened. The minutes ticked by in silence. Then a voice spoke from the darkness of the hallway. How disappointing. Lawrence Lowell stepped into the pool of lamplight, immaculately dressed in a tailored suit, his silver hair perfectly combed. He looked like what he was supposed to be, a respected humanitarian, a pillar of society. I expected better security, he continued, gesturing casually with the gun in his hand. Though I suppose it hardly matters now. Richard pushed Logan behind him. How did you get in? Your agent Rivera is quite predictable, Lowell said with a smile, setting up a perimeter, watching the obvious entry points. But she forgot about the old service tunnel that connects to the neighbor's property, a remnant from when these estates were built in the 1920s. He moved further into the room, gun never wavering. Now we're going to leave quietly. The boy comes with me. You two stay here until we're clear. If you follow, if you call for help, my associates outside will ensure it's the last mistake you make. No, Olivia said, stepping forward. You're not taking my son. Lowell sighed as if dealing with a particularly difficult child. Ms. Morrison, I admire your maternal instinct, but surely you see this is inevitable. I have resources you cannot imagine, connections that reach into every institution, every government agency. There is nowhere you can hide that I cannot find you. Maybe, Richard acknowledged, but can you hide from the truth? Confusion flickered across Lowell's face. What are you talking about? Richard nodded toward the lamp. Concealed within the base, a small red light blinked steadily. We've been broadcasting this entire conversation, Liam, to every law enforcement agency in the country, to news outlets, to the public. Lowell's composure cracked, just for a moment. You're bluffing. Am I? Richard challenged. Check your phone, check social media, your face, your voice, your confession. It's everywhere by now. As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Lowell's phone began to ring, then again and again. It's over, Richard said quietly. Your empire is falling apart as we speak. Lowell's face contorted with rage. He raised the gun, aiming it at Richard's heart. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. A shot rang out. Lowell staggered, the gun falling from his hand. He looked down in confusion at the spreading red stain on his chest. Behind him, Rivera stood in the doorway, her service weapon still raised. Federal agent, drop your weapon and get on the ground. Lowell sank to his knees, his expression one of disbelief. How? We've been investigating you for months, Rivera said, moving forward to secure his weapon. Donovan gave us enough to start digging. Claire's records gave us financial connections. All we needed was your confession. More agents flooded the room, securing Lowell, radioing for medical assistance. In the chaos, Richard pulled Olivia and Logan close, shielding them from the sight of the fallen man. Is it really over? Olivia whispered. Richard looked at Rivera, who nodded confirmation. It's really over, he assured her. The head of the snake is cut off. The network will collapse without him. As Lowell was carried away on a stretcher, his life ebbing but not yet gone, Rivera approached them. We'll need statements from all of you, but it can wait until morning. You've been through enough tonight. When the agents had gone and the house was quiet again, Richard, Olivia, and Logan sat together on the couch. Logan had fallen asleep between them, exhausted by the fear and tension of the day. What happens now? Olivia asked softly, stroking Logan's hair. Now we live, Richard said simply. We build a life, a real one, without fear. Olivia looked at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Thank you for fighting for us, for risking everything. You're my family, Richard said, the words feeling right in his mouth. Both of you. Olivia reached across Logan's sleeping form, taking Richard's hand in hers. Alexandra would be proud of you, of all of us. I think she is, Richard said, feeling a sense of peace settle over him for the first time in months. I think she's been watching over us all along. They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands across their sleeping child. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the windows, the darkness was passing. A new day was beginning. 6 months later, they returned to the cemetery. Logan placed flowers on Alexandra's grave, then stepped back to stand between Richard and Olivia. "I miss her," he said simply. "We all do," Richard agreed, his arm around Logan's shoulders. The headstone gleamed in the sunlight, Alexandra's name etched in the granite. Beneath it, they had added a new inscription. "Her courage saved many. Love. Her love lives on." As they turned to leave, Logan paused. "Do you think she knows we're a family now?" "I think she knew before any of us did," Richard said, his voice thick with emotion. "I think she brought us together." They walked through the cemetery toward the car, toward home, the three of them together. A family forged not by blood, but by love, by courage, by the legacy of a young woman who had refused to look away from suffering. And somewhere, Richard was certain Alexandra was smiling.